Well, the managing director of road construction company Usuya Ghana Limited, Alhaji Yusuf Yakubu, has for the second time in many weeks donated food items and personal protective equipment to some 8 health facilities in the Upper West region, and it's all in the bid for them to fight the coronavirus pandemic. The items donated are worth 120,000 Ghana cedis. Upper West Regional Minister Dr. Hafiz bin Sali, who received the items on behalf of the 8 health facilities, called on other benevolent organizations and philanthropists to come to the aid of the region. Upper West Regional correspondent Rafiq Salam brings us more.
This is the second time the managing director of Accra-based road construction firm Usuya Ghana Limited, Alhaji Yusuf Yakubu, has donated items to 8 health facilities in the Upper West region in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. In the first instance, he donated items worth 150,000 Ghana cedis that included 20 non-contact thermometers, several hundreds of gallons of hand sanitizers, 400 boxes of nose masks, and 300 boxes of hand gloves. Still not satisfied with what he has given out, considering the enormity of the challenges in fighting the deadly disease, the renowned philanthropist dipped his hand into his pocket further. The result is the donation of the following items worth 120,000 Ghana cedis, as announced by the Upper West Regional Minister, Dr. Hafiz bin Sali.
The items we received from Usuya Ghana Limited include 10 pieces of infrared thermometers, then 6,000 pieces of nose masks, then 40 pieces of face shield, and then 100 bags of rice. The regional hospital, the Wa Municipal Hospital, Nandom Hospital, Tumu Hospital, Jirapa, Nadoli, Laura, and Golu hospitals. These are the beneficiary health facilities.
Dr. bin Sali was grateful to Usuya Ghana Limited and urged corporate institutions and well-endowed people from the Upper West region to emulate the example.
He has demonstrated that he is a true son of the Upper West region. The items that we have received is valued at 120,000 Ghana cedis. The first item have been put to good use, and it is my expectation that these consignments will also be put to good use. But I also want to use this occasion once again to appeal to other philanthropists to come to the assistance of the region. We are still in need of PPEs, and no amount of it will be deemed small.
Upper West Regional Director of Health Services, Dr. Osekufo Afre, expressed satisfaction over the items donated, especially with the 100 bags of rice, which he described as timeless and will go a long way to ease the feeding challenges of the COVID-19 patients in the region.
In addition to the PPEs, they've given us some bags of rice, and I think that is going to help us make sure we are able to feed our clients on quarantine and isolation, at least for the period that they have to be with us.
The 2 donations, one lamb together, will be worth 270,000 Ghana cedis, making him the highest single donor to the region since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam. Wa.
And with the World Health Organization's advice for people to ensure their face and noses are covered to prevent getting infected with coronavirus, many have resorted to using all sorts of materials for that purpose. Now in this video, sourced from online platforms, we see how people have become creative in protecting the face, nose and ears. very surreal, or same time bizarre at the same time. But how do you get yourself protected? It's a question which has always become a conundrum in our minds each time we get the chills because of the news about deaths on coronavirus. But look, we'll keep you up to date with the latest, the Ghana figures and how the situation is. We'll go to the worldwide situation as well. But our conversation, again, laden with a lot of education, is still on. We'll have a discussion with the head of the virology department, Noguchi, Dr. Ampofo, Professor Ampofo, have to be politically correct. That's his academic qualifications. To be right, will be here with us and have some great discussions as he streams and tells us the sort of test kits we're using, where they're coming from, how efficacious they are. And I guess all of us will be the better for it. But again, there's a national disinfection exercise ongoing. It is a collaboration between Zoom Lion Ghana, the rest of its subsidiaries across Ghana, for all senior high schools across Ghana to be disinfected, and for some that have rodents and other sort of insects to also be fumigated in the process. We'll bring you live pictures as the exercise also starts or continues in earnest this morning, and you'll get to see what really is being done by that good initiative. Stick and stay. We'll be right back with the latest review of the newspapers. Myself, Mama V, and then Kojo. I told you we'll be doing the newspapers. We're ready. We'll also do myjoyonline.com. Get to the homepage and see the published stories there. Well, look, it's the best portal for you. Aggregation of stories, all from the multimedia platform. Joy News, we have Prime, and all of them. But Mama V is ready. Kojo Jansen is also streaming in, so it's a packed screen for you.
I want to ask you on behalf of our viewers, what do you drink or eat, before the show starts?
Water.
Okay. All right. Good morning, y'all. Welcome to the news review segment. No, the newspaper review. We will do the online as well. So let's begin. Hello, Kojo. Are you there? Our colleague Kojo Jansen.
Yeah, I'm here, Mama Vizi. Kojo, what's up?
That's a borrowed voice.
Mama Vizi.
Oh,
I'm here, Mama Vizi.
We're on our way there. The voice is on way to this morning.
He's trying to sound like you.
I can't hear myself. You can hear me though.
No, don't worry about yourself. You're fine. Okay. Just hear us.
All right, that's all that matters.
Okay, but listen, we missed the morning message. What happened?
I know, right? Well, when I woke up, it's weird. I don't know if you can still see it, but I had a funny swelling under my eye.
Oh, it looks okay.
I didn't want to share it with you. Yeah, I didn't want to share it with you, so I had to medicate it very quickly. It's an allergy, so it's going down as we speak.
Why you choose some pork?
It doesn't look right yet, but it's going down.
Yeah?
You choose some pork or mushrooms, or ate some mushrooms?
My allergies are atmospheric, so pollen, dust, that sort of thing.
Massa, you are home, you are home.
I didn't know that apparently you have friends at NASA. We don't have a space agency. I didn't know you have friends at NASA. So Apollo affects you.
All right, man. Now that you're here, let's do the newspaper.
Let me put something. So, Kojo, we have the Ghanaian Times. You do the Ghanaian Times and then the Daily Guide.
All right.
Great.
Okay.
All right.
I'll stick with the Daily Graphic newspaper. So let me go first, gentlemen. Let's look at what's on the front page of the paper by way of headlines. Economy grows, expands from 300 billion Ghana cedis in 2018 to 349 billion Ghana cedis in 2019. There's Professor Samuel Kwabena Enim, who is a government statistician, who says that Ghana has maintained its position as the second biggest economy in West Africa after Nigeria. Well, there's details of that a bit later on we could share. Ghana on course to hit 100,000 COVID-19 tests soon. This is coming out of that press briefing yesterday with a picture of Professor William Ampofo, who is head of virology at the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research. He's on our show this morning. COVID-19 prevention directives enhanced, according to Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah. Companies ready to deliver PPE mid-May, attributed to Some managers. That story is on page 11 in the center spread. Islamic Christian leaders support ban on religious gatherings. Also, religious traditional leaders assets in fights against COVID-19, according to an Afrobarometer report. Still on COVID-19, National Trust Fund commences distribution to health institutions. On the back page, Ghana Fields supports. Did I say Ghana? It's Goldfields. Apologies, there's Goldfield supports Tarkwa municipality to combat COVID-19. Bank of Africa Ghana supports COVID-19 fight. So paper full of stories of corporate entities supporting the fight against COVID-19. That will be it, guys.
Yeah, Kojo, you're on.
I think you should go first, Roland. I'm having a bit of a technical issue here with my tablet, so you go next.
Okay, so I'll do the new Crusading Guide. Has on the front page, Chief Imam lauds government for lifting lockdown. And I have to announce this, as we start the Ramadan, myself and my Muslim brothers and sisters, especially those of us living in Ashaiman, my home town, please, I know that we're all going to adhere to all the related guidelines, but I also have to announce that the National Chief Imam, Sheikh Dr. Nuhu Sharubutu, is 101 years today. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to him. I'm hoping that my producer will allow us to play one of those Sami Yusuf songs for him.
Oh, Roland, you know, live is always better than, like, playbacks and miming, so you get ready to sing. That would be a wonderful birthday present.
I can sing.
Yeah.
Well, so the story captured on the front page of the New Crusading Guide states, Chief Imam, who is 101 years today, lauds government for lifting lockdown. Yeah, many people needed it. You can argue about the decision, etc., but it is what it is. Elsewhere in Turkey, they have just started a 4-day lockdown as well, so speaks volumes about how the world is reeling from coronavirus. Ghana Health Service reported test result not duplicates. Noguchi, I'm talking about Noguchi. Kojo Jackson's having an interaction with Professor Ampofo. He's head virology, the department there, going to give us all the comprehensive explanation, the test kits, where they're coming from, do we have enough, all those questions being posed to them this morning. Other stories on the front page of the New Crusading Guide. Government allays fears over efficiency of Unipass. Says new system has proven track record. Okay. We have COVID-19. Ghana will not record 3 million cases, Dr. Nsia Sari to WHO 3 days ago. I was in a studio and said something, and yesterday it was clarified. It was an explanation to what he said the night before.
He did attribution.
Yeah, World Health Organization and what they... Okay, so we have all those on the front page of the New Crusading Guide. Kojo, you ready now?
I should be. Okay. I've got a freezing tablet that is making life difficult.
Yeah. But, yeah. What type is it? Is it an Apple? Apple doesn't freeze.
It's not Apple. It's not. Don't put somebody's
very
company
much
in trouble.
Unlike you.
All right. Okay. So I'm doing the Ghanaian Times, right? And what's the other one?
The other one is the Daily Guide.
Okay, so banner headline on the front page of the Ghanaian Times: decision based on science, says the president. Of course, this is the decision to lift the lockdown. COVID-19 National Trust Fund bags 34 million Ghana cedis, and Dr. Nsia Sari dismisses fears about 15,000 projected COVID-19 deaths. We talked about how that was a clarification. Confirmed COVID-19 cases hit 1,154, and some great news, 120 recover. I've also got the Dispatch. Is that the other paper you wanted me to do?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, banner headline this morning in the Dispatch. Your bold decisions have led to Ghana's low COVID-19 infection rate. This is the president of the National House of Chiefs, Toby Afode, saying this to the president. And indeed, many of the president's decisions have been bold. Social distancing, key to ending COVID-19 pandemic. What can a district office of NCCE do with 100 Ghana cedis a month. This is something that I think, guys, we need to make some time to talk about. How successive governments have been starving NCCE. I think it's deliberate. They want an ignorant population. But anyway, we should talk about it one day. And that does it for me.
Okay.
Well, we have to do Daily Guide, and Daily Guide is one of the papers remaining as well. Has on the front page 120 recover from COVID-19 cases. Hit total figures for Ghana: 1,154 Muslims, Christians support Nana, and then we have KOA-IFS FDA fight rages. KOA-IFS. U.S. military deal ruling adjourned, and fetish priest kills twin brother. Okay. On the back page, it's still about related issues of football. And Chelsea, Coutinho. Coutinho was at Liverpool, decided to go join Barcelona, went to Bayern Munich, now wants to come back to England, Chelsea. He is a Brazilian, very good player, I have to admit. KP Boateng hails Balotelli potential. Potential? Oh, he's already old. Yeah. Okay.
Meanwhile, potential is not just about age, Anna.
Well, in football, your age is numbered. Your football age is usually numbered in terms of your efficiency. But if you want,
and I said potential, maybe he has the potential to be a Roger Miller.
I agree on that score. Or even is it that gentleman keeps playing? Ibrahimovic still plays at an old age. Ronaldo. All right.
Zlatan.
All right. So what do we want to take a look at?
Well, the president says his decision is based on science. I was hoping I could open up that story and read the contents to you.
Okay, Kojo, let's do myjohnline.com, then we'll do that one quickly. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
So let's go through myjohnline.com then. Let's use a minute.
Yeah.
Mama V.
Okay, here we go. On myjohnline.com this day, leadership experts praise Akufo-Addo's handling of coronavirus in Ghana. First man to test positive for coronavirus in the Upper West region recovers. IGP orders 10,000 police officers to test for COVID-19. And Noguchi records positive COVID-19 cases every day, according to senior research fellow. KNUST develops low-cost ventilator to support COVID-19 care and management. Ghana's COVID-19 cases increased by 102 or 112 to 1,154. Coronavirus pandemic will cause global famines of biblical proportions. The UN is warning. Essentially, the UN says famine could take hold in about 36 countries in a worst-case scenario. That's according to the executive director of the World Food Programme. He said in a stack address on Tuesday, 10 of those countries already have more than 1 million people on the verge of starvation. He said, so you can click on the story and read a lot more. Anti-Graft Coalition calls for transparency in management of COVID-19 National Trust Fund. Still on coronavirus, it could potentially infect 3 million Ghanaians. President's advisor on health, except he was actually also re-echoing something that he attributes to the World Health Organization. And if you miss any of our content in terms of the videos, you can catch up. Let's go to the BBC. Let's see what's happening on the BBC real quick by way of international news. One of the stories making headlines, actually, Trump signing an order on immigration green card suspension. But this one says Africa, no, this is the Africa story. Tanzania won on false hopes in COVID-19 fight. Plenty other stories on the page. Why some Nigerians where are we? Gloating about coronavirus. Well, some people still think it's rich people's disease, people who traveled and returned into Nigeria and had contact with those they came into contact with whilst in Nigeria. So it's a very expensive disease. People still have that notion that it won't affect poor people or infect poor people. Frontline Egyptian doctor in UK fears for family if he dies. Caution urged over Madagascar coronavirus cure. But I wanted to talk about President Trump. He signed an executive order to temporarily suspend the approval of some green cards. But this is at a time when, you know, the consulates are not working, right? I mean, nobody's traveling anywhere. Nobody's asking for visa anywhere. Some people have said this is just like some kind of tactics to get people's minds off coronavirus. China extends run of no recorded virus deaths. One other headline has to do with South Africa and the number of troops they've deployed to ensure the lockdown. 70,000, it's actually over 70,000 troops to enforce the lockdown. You know, they have an extension, ends Thursday, 30th April, so ending of April is the lockdown. And this is tighter. You can't take your dogs out to walk, you can't jog, no alcohol, a lot of no-no-nos in South Africa. Kojo, there's a story that you are looking for, you're set now?
No. Okay. I need to be able to read the text of the story, but it hasn't been sent to me. So, but it's really what the president was saying about how his decision was based on science. I would have liked to be able to pick from the story which science the president is referring to, because you notice that when Dr. Nsiah-Sarrey spoke to Evans, he kept insisting that the science was social science, and that is also science, you know, kind of like how home science is also science. So, you know, Dr. Nsiah-Sarrey was suggesting that perhaps it's not the kind of science that we are thinking about. Perhaps it wasn't based on things like statistics or epidemiology, which is the science which governs the decisions that authorities are making around the world about this disease.
So let's see if I can help.
Epidemiology in particular. Sorry, you were saying.
Just let's see if I can help with a bit of details of this particular story you're talking about. It's in the Ghanaian Times, page 12. Fast forward to where they talk about the president. It says President Akufo-Addo on his part explained the reasons behind his decision to lift the partial lockdown, noting that the decision is driven by science. He thanked the chief imam and said the Muslim, okay, so he doesn't talk about the science necessarily. The president said the live broadcast, okay, so just responding to the request of the chief imam. Not explaining according to the story. I didn't see it, Kojo.
That's interesting because, you see, I would like to know what the science is. It's important for us to understand. If the president says it was science that determined his decision, not economics, if it was, you know, the disease and, you know, the science of the disease, then we would love to know what the explanation is. Why is it that when we had 59 cases and we went on a lockdown, but now that we have at the time he lifted the lockdown, we had 1,042 cases. So what is it that made Ghana safer for us to walk around in at the time we had 1,042 cases compared to the time we had 59 cases? What science?
Well, maybe Kojo, fortunately,
about, you know, at the time.
Fortunately, we've got the head of virology at Noguchi. Perhaps you could put that to him. We've got a minute to wrap up, maybe less. So we've got to go now. All right, Roland, anything you want to say in about 30 seconds before we go?
Oh, no, I'm fine.
All right, stay with us. We've got sports coming your way. Roger Federer making headlines, talking about bringing the women's and the men's game together. Lots of ideas when there's nothing really to do in terms of playing tennis. Benedict has got all those conversations coming up. Stay with us.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to the sports segment here on the M Show. My name is Benedict Owusu. And of course, this morning, Kumasi Asante Kotoko is trending following a statement that the Menchia Palace, that's the owner of the club Life Patron, Otumfuo Osei-Tutu, released yesterday with regards to everything that has been going on at the club. One, it talks about the transfer saga between Asante Kotoko and Esperance, which has resulted to a possible FIFA ban if they should fail to pay an amount of $240,000. There's more in the following report.
The Porcupine Warriors are facing a transfer ban internationally and locally after a $240,000 fine was imposed on them by the World Football Governing Body. The fine is as a result of the illegal signing of Esperance striker Emmanuel Clottey in 2015. The club has until May 17 to settle the debt or will be banned from registering new players. Esperance reported Kotoko to FIFA after the Ghanaian giant had demanded the payment of the summer fee of midfielder Kwame Bonsu. Kotoko transferred Bonsu to Esperance for a reported $150,000 in July 2019. A part of the statement released by Mansia on Wednesday read, and I quote, "A committee has been appointed to investigate all the circumstances surrounding Asante Kotoko Sporting Club transactions with Tunisian club Esperance, which resulted in the FIFA ruling and the subsequent transfer of another Asante Kotoko player to the club." Unquote. Also, the statement revealed Executive Chairman Dr. Kwame Kyei has submitted the report of his stewardship for the past 3 years to the palace.
So that was Asari Ako's report. We still stay with Kumasi Asante Kotoko, and telecommunications giant MTN has suspended all financial obligations to the club. Well, Nana Jim Bibi, who is general manager of the club, has been speaking about this.
The contract we have with MTN, it is stated categorically in the contract that anytime there's a closure led by a force majeure, it means the contract can either be terminated or it can be suspended. As today, as I speak with you, there's been a letter from MTN to Kumasi Asante Kotoko claiming they are suspending all their financial obligations to the club. Wow. As I speak with you. And this is in conformity of the clause in the contract that allows them to do so. So it means that there will be difficulty in terms of the club's financial situation. Yeah. And coupled with the absence of football. And once there is no football, it means the club is not making any money or revenue, which obviously makes it very difficult to take care of the club's financial obligations to whoever the club is in contract with. So these and many other reasons are why we have been engaging the employees of the club, especially the playing body, to accept the pay cut so that the club can be taken care of in these hard times, and the club can also be sustained in this difficult times.
Another Jim Bibi is general manager of Kumasi Asante Kotoko, and the suspension of MTN's financial deals with Asante Kotoko is as a result of COVID-19, that's coronavirus. So Kotoko is not the only club feeling the pinch here on the local scene. Legon cities also are in the same soup. Well, here is their PRO, Kwame Jumajama.
You know, a lot of Ghanaian clubs, just like quite a number of clubs all over the world, we depend on game proceeds, we depend on the transfer of players, and of course we depend on a bit of sponsorship as and when they come in. Now that football is not being played, obviously we are not making any money from the gate altogether. Again, now that football is not being played, we can't, as it were, if the club even approaches us, even coming to a deal with them concerning the transfer of our players, it's going to be tight. And of course, you and I know that sponsorship is next to nothing in our parts of the world. So if you're planning, even in the short term, you can't really do much, because not much is coming in, and it makes it very, very difficult, I'm sure, not just for our club, but almost all the other competing clubs in the Ghana Premier League. The directive by the Ghana Football Association, there's not much we can do. We can't train, we can't get the lads together. So it's obviously a very difficult one. So what we have done is that we have devised personal training programs for these players, which are being monitored by the technical team to ensure that these players do not put on weight, or these players are not in prime physical condition as and when the Ghana Premier League resumes. So essentially, that's what we are able to do at the moment.
Well, it's a Thursday, and now let's talk technology. That's what we do on Tech Thursdays. And in this time, it's even become more important. All forms of technology. Now, 1 in 6 people with coronavirus become seriously ill with breathing difficulties is one of the main symptoms they're likely to face. Now, with Ghana's cases going over now 1,100 with 9 deaths so far, issues of life support equipment so far have dominated discussion platforms. They've become topical. One of them, respirators or ventilators, have been the go-to equipment in COVID-19 intensive care units across Ghana and the world. Sadly, Ghana just doesn't seem to have that luxury because if you look at the world market prices, they are expensive. But there's hope. As engineering students at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, they have developed a low-cost automated respirator. And today, Love FM's Kwesi Deborah speaks with the young people behind this great innovation.
The group of researchers led by the president of the Institute of Safety, Disaster and Emergency Studies, Dr. Ishmael Norman, decided to undertake research on all-risk emergency preparedness in Ghana's hospitals. And do you know what they found? Only 45.5% had respirators. Of course, Kofanochi Teaching Hospital is having some, Kulebu Teaching Hospital is having a number of them. What about the district hospitals? The least said about them, the better. Students at the KNUST have, for the past 2 years, been working on how to write a good ending to the story captured in the Ghana Medical Journal. Professor Mark Aduma Samoa is Provost, College of Engineering.
Most of the district hospitals and community hospitals, they lack ventilators. So we initiated a project with the University of Michigan to build locally made ventilators.
Hospital-grade ventilator costs between 130,000 cedis and 300,000 cedis. The team, put together by Professor Mark Aduma Samoa, has been thinking of less expensive ventilators.
We felt that if we could get a ventilator that could have the basic functions for human breathing, then it will go a very long way to help with our health delivery system.
The prototype has an initial cost of 20,000 cedis, which the college believes will reduce significantly if mass-produced. Professor Kwame Osei-Boateng is one of the project coordinators.
When you are building prototype, it's not that which you use to price the product on the market, but rather all these problems we are going through, once we are done, we would have prepared templates and we can then mass produce. When you are mass producing, you do a whole lot at a time, and so you are able to bring the price down.
Ashanti Regional Clinical Engineering Manager, Ghana Health Services, Eric Sakimensa, though is impressed with what is likely to be the first automated ventilator to make its way into Ghana's intensive care wards, he knows additional functionalities will be apt.
For a life support device like a ventilator, you need to check something we call the SpO2, the amount of oxygen in the patient. We need to know. Also, it's a monitoring device, so we need to get its temperature, check sometimes the ECG, and then we have some technicalities that we call something like the tidal wave. We need to know all these things. And when we discuss with them, they made us aware that they have all these things in the prototype document.
Professor Osei-Boateng has therefore been taking notes.
What we'll be adding to it is that as it is, it's already automated, but still there are certain functions we could still automate further, because we are thinking that you wouldn't have, some people may not be in so critical a condition, such that they may be aided with the ventilator for a while, and then at the time they regain their composure and are able to breathe. Then the machine itself should be able to sense that now the person is okay, so it can go off by itself. Or if the person is okay and is on the person, at the time that the person begins to struggle, it should be able to detect and kick in so that it helps. These are the fine-tuning in terms of automation that we are thinking about now. Yeah, and in addition to this, we are thinking of other adding devices that could also monitor the signals from the body, like the electrocardiograph.
The college says the ventilator, which is 95% complete, will be fully functional in 2 months' time, but will require financial support. For Joy News, Kwesi Deborah.
Technology is good, and when we have great innovators, it also means that they need some great help, and I hope that we will invest in research and development in our country so that all these science, mathematics and technology students will become the frontliners for us to develop. I'm talking about science, technology, mathematics. One person who studied that in school is Professor William Ampofo. He is a virologist and he heads the virology department, the Noguchi Memorial Research Institute. And I tell you, they are key frontliners in testing all those suspected cases of victims of coronavirus. And ultimately, we will need some explanations on test kits, where they're coming from, how efficacious they are, and then all the relevant things that they do at Noguchi that has now become more important than ever. Well, Kojo Yankson is doing that discussion with Professor William Ampofo, and I know that you're going to enjoy it. Very much educative, and it's all set. Kojo, you can take it up.
Professor Ampofo, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, good morning. I hope you can hear me too.
Absolutely. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Yesterday, we all had the benefit of your explanations at the presser, where you talked us through that confusion around some numbers, you know, of how many tests we've done and so forth. Now, the general highlight, what I understood is that you were using a certain type of testing. I picked up the term pool testing, where you could test 10 samples with the reagent, and if there is any of those 10 samples that has the coronavirus, then you know that you need to test each of those 10 individually. But if you test all 10 and there's no sign, then you know that they are all negative and you can move on to the next batch of 10. That's about right. Have I summarized it properly?
Yes, what we do is that we batch the samples in 10s. We used to do it in 5s, but we realized that we could do it in 10s. We did a little trial, which is actually a very important experiment to ensure that when we mixed all the 10 together, they were not diluting each other out, so that with the minimum amount of reagent, we could test 10 samples at one go instead of testing them individually.
Right. I think we may have lost the audio there. I'm struggling to hear you, Prof. Yeah, sorry, I can't hear you, Prof. I can't hear myself either, to be fair.
Well, we'll connect you back to that interaction Kojo Yankson is having with Professor William Ampofo with the virology department, where he heads at Noguchi, and all those explanations, that great education we all need as to how that department and the rest of the institute is very critical to a COVID fight will all be brought to the fore. But in the meantime, this election, that's the 2020 general election, will be the third and final contest between John Mahama and Akufo-Addo on who becomes Ghana's president. Now, having lost to John Mahama in the 2012 elections, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo won convincingly in 2016. And as election 2020 approaches, the stakes are still very high. Whoever emerges victorious serves the final of a constitutionally permissible 2 terms. But the spread of the coronavirus into Ghana presents a challenge for both candidates in the following report. Winston Amwa puts the spotlight on the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on politics in Ghana.
In February 2020, the NDC launched the Speak Out Tour. The tour, which was to take place in all 16 regions of the country, was to enable its leader and flag bearer, John Mahama, to meet, interact with, and listen directly to the people of Ghana. The party's manifesto team was to accompany Mr. Mahama to take advantage of the tour to listen to the views of the grassroots and incorporate them in the party's manifesto. Having toured the Western North, Ahafo, and Upper East regions, Ghana recorded cases of coronavirus, causing the president to ban public gatherings.
All public gatherings, including conferences, workshops, funerals, festivals, political rallies, sporting events, and religious events such as services in churches and mosques have been suspended for the next 4 weeks.
Political campaigns took a hit. This caused the flag bearer of the NDC, John Mahama, to suspend the Speak Out tour. Even though the partial lockdown has been lifted, the ban on public gatherings is still in force. So how has this impacted political activities in this election year? I caught up with political scientist and lecturer at the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana, Dr. Isaac Owusu-Mensah, who in 2016 correctly predicted victory for the NPP.
The season of the campaign will be shortened as compared to the previous times, because as we speak now, if it had not been the COVID-19, NPP will be seriously campaigning now for the 149 constituencies that they were going to have the primaries on. That would have been 25th of April, some few days from now. That's the coming Saturday or so, I guess. And then NDC probably will have also come out with their running mates by now. But now all this is suspended, and therefore the time of the campaigning will also reduce. The political parties, the time to campaign will be short, and for them, the shorter the campaign season, the better, because the amount of resources that they will have disbursed during the longer campaign season will be reduced, and therefore everybody will have to be on board.
For the General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, apart from the NDC's inability to organize parliamentary primaries in some 20 constituencies, the party is fallen.
Indeed, we're going to do the next batch of primaries the Saturday after the president's first directives. So we had prepared everything, but we immediately held a meeting and announced that health first. So we have suspended all our political activities.
However, for General Secretary of the NPP, John Boadu, the effect is enormous.
For us in politics, it's because we do mass mobilization, because we do mass gathering, mass meetings. Its impact is enormous. As you are aware, we're expected to have parliamentary primaries for where we have sitting members of parliament to the 5th of April. Because we still have in place social distance measures or restrictions with regards to mass gathering, public gathering, rallies and all that. We have to postpone it indefinitely. We're also expecting by May 2nd to have launched our campaign.
So how will the ban on public gatherings affect the political fortunes of the NPP and the NDC?
As for the elections and so on, we are not concerned about elections or discussing elections, discussing registration, discussing this, discussing that. Because the same people, if we are saying that the health crisis is an emergency, and if we are not careful, we don't act properly, it can consume us. We cannot be seen to be discussing what will happen after the health crisis, because if we don't act well now, we can be consumed such that there will not be any tomorrow for us to be talking about.
But John Boadu is very optimistic. His party will win the 2020 elections.
For us in the New Patriotic Party, we believe that if elections is held today, we will win, because we've done so much.
The economic conditions of electorates play a major role in the electoral choices, and how the governing party responds to these play an even bigger role. During the lockdown period, government rolled out various packages to support small businesses, the poor and the vulnerable. Dr. Owusu-Mensah believes the NPP has taken advantage of this reality. He explains further.
And I think so far, apart from the lifting of the ban that people have been against, that they are not very happy with, all kinds of misfeeling, all the steps the government have taken so far, people have appreciated it, except this one. But as the expert always keeps saying, we don't know and don't have all the information. So if the government also get the lifting right, that is really going to be their advantage. What I was a bit surprised was that I think NDC should have also come on board, strongly on board, not necessarily doing their own thing, because all the resources that the government, the MPP or the government is putting on the ground, it's not from the MPP, it's from the government. So NDC should have joined them in the distribution of the food. We are also here to help the distribution of it, so that will reduce the strength that and the advantage that the incumbent government will have. But unfortunately, it didn't happen that way. So incumbent government really have a lot of advantage to its side in terms of distribution of their resources. And normally when it goes to elections, people reward political parties for what they have done and what they have not done.
Another factor that is central to the upcoming election is the voters' register. The Electoral Commission has been emphatic that there cannot be a credible election without a new voter register. Director of Electoral Service at the EC is Dr. Sribo Kwaku.
As far as the Commission is concerned, we are saying that we can only ensure credible register with a new register.
Okay, but that brings back my question, and this is relevant, if you may. In the midst of the uncertainties brought on by COVID-19, nobody knows when this is going to pass. Is the EC at least now reconsidering that and saying, in a push come to shove, we will have to shelve this and just do limited? Is that something you're considering?
Then can I also ask a question?
Please do.
In the phase of the COVID-19, are you also thinking of not having election 2020?
I don't know. I mean, it's something that the Electoral Commission has to...
Anybody in the Electoral Commission, knowing the resources that we have, knowing the situation of the register, will go for a new credible register.
I totally get that, but I don't know if you can answer me. Is there a thinking around what if? It's not possible.
And that would defeat our argument that if we are to have credible election 2020, we need a new register.
Okay.
There's been a ban on public gathering, and with the Electoral Commission postponing the compilation of a new voters register, there's still uncertainty about the way forward. But the NPP's John Bodu says the new register is a necessity.
There's no way we won't have a new register. You must understand this. Doing an additional or limited registration exercise clearly shows that you don't have an old register. There's no way we can have an election in December without a new register. If the Electoral Commission, per the condition that we find ourselves, decide to either maintain the old register or either validate the old register, they will necessarily have to do a registration exercise, be it a limited of some sort, in order to have a register that is credible, that contains almost every voter that has reached the age of voting. So there's no point. We can't use the old register without adding on, either validating it or adding on in terms of those who have turned the age of 18. So as for the old register, it's out entirely.
For Johnson Asiedu Nketia, the NDC's priority is the health of the people.
We choose to spend all our efforts to concentrate on, getting back the health of the nation first. Okay. Then after that, other things. In the Bible, they say, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all other things shall be given unto you. So let us focus on this. So those who think that they can be dealing with one hand on trying to take unfair advantage of the elections, and the other hand pretending to be putting the health first, in the end they will suffer the consequence. But we think that the health of the people first, and that is what we are. There are so many unknowns, so let us talk about how we can get out of the elections and not out of the pandemic, and not be talking about what will happen after that. You see, the people who are talking about what will happen, are we going to postpone the elections, are we going to do this, are we going to do this after the pandemic, after the pandemic, after the pandemic? who is going to give you the situation you are talking about after the pandemic?
But as John Boadu knows something which is about to happen.
Executive Instrument 64 contains the restrictive measures with regards to public gatherings, with regards to funerals, with regards to conferences and all that. And that is ending by 26th of April. We don't know what the president will do, but if at that point, if the effect of the virus has come down, then of course it's possible some lessening of the measures can happen. And we hope that by middle of May, end of May, if the burden has come down, then if the restriction is lifted, then the Electoral Commission can also devise ways of ensuring that they do what they are mandated to do in a manner that will not put the life of our people at risk. Because even in this same scenario, you have a country like South Korea having a successful election with a turnout that is highest as compared to even normal times. You have Mali just last 3-4 days having a successful election and all that. So I think that we are in a very difficult position. We are in a very difficult situation. These are not normal times, but because we must have the election on December 7th, we in the New Patriotic Party don't ever think and assume one day that there should be an extension on the mandate of our presidency or for our parliamentary candidate just for even an hour. So we believe that the efforts that the president has put in terms of devising measures to curb this disease that is afflicting everybody will be successful in order for us all to be able to go about our normal duties without hint or late.
The stakes are high, the controversies will continue, and sometimes the discussions will hit deadlocks. Ghana prepares for a crucial election in 8 months. But no matter how high the interest may be, the people, the citizenry, must be at the center of it all. Winston Amoah, Joy News.
And you would know that we launched not so long ago our election headquarters. Great package of some great information in programming for you as your most trusted source for all election content will always be right here, Joy News and the rest of the multimedia channels. But Winston Amoah will be joining us very soon. We'll talk about this, what may have inspired him to put together this great package, and well, as he went through the production process, putting together the scripting and all the personalities that he did speak to, what really struck him most.
Well, Winston is here to talk to us about, first of all, why he decided to go into the politics. These days, everybody's talking about the pandemic, but this politics is also around the corner. It's something that we all love, right? And people have been asking, when is this going to come back?
Exactly. I mean, talking about politics, all of us do love politics, but also because politics offers us choices of which we have to choose. And so it's always important, particularly in an election year. And you know that at the beginning of the year, the NDC, for instance, launched their Speak Out tour. And the whole idea was to get their flag bearer, John Mahama, going around the country, interacting with people and, you know, getting to know what their concerns are, and the party's manifesto committee taking advantage of it to compile the party's manifesto. Unfortunately for them, you know, we're hit with coronavirus, and so the president banned
in February 20.
Because of that, many political activities, as we all do now, in fact, all political activities have come to a halt.
Yeah.
So what I just sought to do, I asked myself, so how is this impacting political parties, knowing very well that, you know, they normally would have expected to be on the road by now, campaigning vigorously. And
would have been talking about a vice presidential candidate for the NDC.
Exactly, exactly. And so with all of this, I decided to find out how it's impacted them. But of course, you're not going to do just the NDC. It's also affected the NPP, because then I knew that the NPP wasn't going to have its elections for the selection of parliamentary candidates in their, you know,
constituencies with candidates, and so with members of parliament. And so I started to find out how this has impacted them, and it's been good. It's been good. We've gotten, you know, the sort of responses we really wanted to know, and that's it.
So they didn't sound too worried, but behind the scenes when you were interacting, did you get the sense that this is disrupting their calendar in ways that they couldn't imagine? Well, certainly, if you listen to John Boadu carefully, he talks about how the impact has been enormous, because for the NPP, as we speak, they have 169 sitting members of parliament. Some of them will be going unopposed, but for those areas where they are supposed to be contests, they can't have those contests. And the other challenge is that there are people who have actually appealed to the National Appeals Committee because they've been disqualified. They think that they should be brought back into the race. And you can't sit on all these cases because of the challenges that we are faced with. So he's admitted that the challenges are enormous. The party actually planned to launch its campaign, that's the NPP, on the 2nd of May, and also launch its manifesto. Sadly, they're unable to do that. The NDC, you'd recognize, has conducted its parliamentary primaries in many of the constituencies, apart from about 20 of them in the Ashanti and Eastern regions. So for the NDC, Johnson Asiedu Nketia says, well, it's affected them in this way, but they haven't been so much hit like you would expect, as the NPP has. But the good thing for all of the political parties, as Dr. Isaac Owusu-Mensah says, is that it actually shortens the political campaigning period. One of the challenges we've had in this country is the fact that, in Britain, the last time there were talks about how the 2010 campaign was about 78 days, and that was one of the longest campaigns they had. But in Ghana, it's not 78 days. It's probably about 600 days, because, once you're done with elections, we start the campaigning. But in an election year, things change. And so the campaigning period might be very short, because... And they might end up spending less as well, because we know it's a very expensive exercise.
Yes, so if it's short, like Dr. Owusu-Mensah said in it, you have all hands on deck, everybody joining to ensure that, you're able to wrestle power or retain power. Yeah, there's also the issue about the Electoral Commission and whether or not they're compiling a new register. Well, when it comes to the Electoral Commission, Dr. Serebour Quaicoe has made it very clear that to have a credible election, you need a credible register. And, as Johnson Asiedu Nketia said, for them, their position is simple. You cannot think about what next, because you don't know how long the virus is going to last. But John Boadu makes the point that he thinks that you can never run an election without a form of a new voters register. So this is a form of a new voters register. What that means is that, during every limited registration exercise, we're told that about 1.2 million Ghanaians or more do register. And so in 2020, we're expecting some 1.2 million Ghanaians who might have turned 18 or who haven't registered to go out there and register. And he believes if they are not giving a chance to register, it could certainly affect or impact the election outcome. And so these persons should be given a chance to register. Not bearing in mind that in 1995, after we had done a major registration exercise when we introduced the colored voters register, in 1996 somebody went to court and said he had not registered, should be giving a chance to register. He thinks that people should be giving a chance to register. And he was very emphatic and categorical that there is no way that we would have the elections without some form of a new register. And that's how come the question came in, whether he knew something we didn't know. Yeah. And he says, EI 64, the ban on public gatherings, expires on Sunday. And he anticipates that based on how the government has managed everything, all things being equal, latest by May, the ban on public gatherings, if it's not lifted on Sunday, will be lifted by then, and then we could go into everything else that we want. So that starts a whole new conversation, and I think because a lot of people were looking forward to lift the lockdown or not, we didn't realize that that second restriction of a sort also ends this weekend. Yeah. So it's either the president would say, I am lifting that totally, you're free to go about and do whatever it is that you want to do, which would mean that all activities will come back in full, including the political activities. Exactly, and once that happens, and I was listening to Dr. Serebour Quaicoe on Newsfile last Saturday, And he talked about the fact that, oh, if that is lifted and all of that, well, they find a way. There's a possibility that they could go ahead. Even if it's July, they wouldn't be behind schedule. You know, they'll still be able to, compile a new voters register before the elections. And so with all the, pressure on the president, if he lifts the ban on public gatherings over the weekend,
we will be back to NDC and PP.
We're back to normal. The challenge, however, is whether people would avail themselves for some of these exercises. The challenge, however, would be whether a lot of people would turn out in numbers, bearing in mind that public gatherings serve as, avenues for the spread of the virus.
Yeah. Well, still a lot of uncertainties, but at least we're closer to Sunday. We're closer to seeing the decision of the president, whether there will be further in terms of an extension, or there will be total lifting of all the bans on gatherings and any other thing, so that we'll be asked to go around and be wearing the mask so you can have your political rallies and get everybody to wear masks. That's possible.
Well, I'm not sure you can actually, you can be able, I'm not sure you can actually determine what people do when it comes to political rallies.
That's also another thing.
And you can't control people when they come for political rallies.
So what if it's not an appeal, but it's also one that is law? You are required to wear the mask.
Yes, it's something that people have been advocating. That that becomes a mandatory thing that we should all wear masks. Germany has done it now. Their states have passed the laws to ensure that everybody gets to wear the mask. That's something you could do, but there's also a certain bit of fear. And look, let's say this: when the political season takes shape, when everything becomes NPP and NDC, the substance of the matter is always lost.
Sure.
When everything becomes NPP and NDC, the substance of what you're faced with is always lost. And that's the challenge we would face once we get into that particular season. And imagine if someone were to go to an NDC rally without a nose mask. It puts all of us at risk. But if you're wearing yours, you are not at risk. So, all these things will come to play. But in the long term, I think that Sunday will determine.
Yeah, but it just occurred to me, you remember when the president said the schools, 2 more weeks for, students, children not going to school. That was also extended for a further 2 weeks.
Yes.
It's interesting that the ban on gatherings, not more than 25 people for a funeral and so on, that wasn't affected.
It's still affected,
because it looks like, okay, no.
So that's EI 64, Executive Instrument 64, ban on churches, funerals, schools. That was extended by 2 weeks, and 2 weeks will be on, the final 2 weeks will be on Sunday. So if the president...
This Sunday already?
This Sunday, yes. So if the president says, we are extending it, fine. If the president says, we are lifting it, it means that you can have your funerals now. And you can have them with all the people that want to be there.
We'll see how that goes. I mean, I just missed it. I missed it. Sunday already?
Yes, it's Sunday.
Okay. All right, Winston, you've begun the political conversation for us, which is good. People are getting a bit tired of everyday coronavirus, COVID-19, the number of people who have died, and the cases that we're recording. That is still very much with us, but it's good that you've changed the game a bit with the Ghanaian politics. Thanks for bringing it back. Stay with us. We've got show business coming your way right here on the AM Show.
But also know that conversation will be continuing. Kojo Yankson interacting with Professor William Ampofo, who is head Virology Department, the Noguchi Memorial Research Institute. They are the forefronts of testing the cases, etc., alongside 3 other institutions. We also do know that we plan as a country to roll out more testing centers across the country. We're hoping that we'll put to bed all that great education. And rightly, they are on. Could you continue?
Thank you, Roland. And thank you so much, Professor Ampofo, for your patience. It's very difficult sometimes working this technology. But it's good to have you back. Now, just before we lost you, you were walking us through the explanation of how these PCR tests are done.
Yes. So as you've heard, the PCR test just means polymerase chain reaction, and it's a molecular test that is used for the direct detection of the pathogen concerned. So it is used to directly detect bacteria. Those are usually what you call DNA, and then viruses, which are both RNA and DNA, ribonucleic acid and deoxynucleic acid. So this is a very standard procedure used now because you're able to amplify, you're able to detect the smallest amount of the pathogen present by an amplification process. And what we're using is a real-time process where as the chemical reaction takes place, you're able to see it in real time on the computer screen. And it actually gives you a measurement of the amount of virus that you started with. So it's quite a very reliable tool in advanced diagnosis now.
Thank you for that. Now, my understanding is that the samples are taken from the patient using a swab, so in the nose or the throat, and then these samples are then put through the process you just described. Now, at the moment, we're working with batches of 10. You started off with 5, now we're doing batches of 10. So what I want to understand is, I keep hearing the term test kit. But from the description you've given, it seems we're just taking swabs and then applying reagents, in batches. So where from the term test kit, and when we say we are ordering test kits and so forth, what exactly do we mean when we say that?
Okay, so the term test kit applies to a simple set or a simple device together with its collecting, material that is used to test for a pathogen. Okay, and the term arises from the application of a rapid diagnostic test kit. So sometimes when you hear people say test kit, they're actually referring to that simple thing, like a pregnancy test, it's like usually, the common term maybe arrived from HIV, where we have a rapid diagnostic test kit. It became short RDT, and sometimes people just say test kit. So they are applying that term also to the coronavirus testing. But when we talk about respiratory viruses, we do not use a test kit per se, because the testing for respiratory viruses is currently based on molecular tests. That is the PCR test, which is, uses a respiratory sample as the starting material. Usually, when we say a test kit for the other pathogens, we're actually referring to a blood sample, and this is usually put on a rapid diagnostic test kit. So I'm glad you brought this up so that the difference is made clear. So for this coronavirus, if you check in the USA, the president has been talking about ramping up molecular tests. Also in China, it was molecular PCR tests that were used. Same thing in South Korea. I think there has been some discussion about the application of rapid diagnostic test kits to enable and facilitate testing for the coronavirus. So that's what we explained, that is something that we are also considering. And that is a subsequent point we will discuss.
All right, thank you so much for that. So what this means is when Jack Ma, for example, donated 21,000 test kits, when the president ordered 50,000 test kits, what exactly was ordered? What did we order?
So again, this is the simple terminology. So 20,000 PCR kits, because now we have an advancement in PCR technology where a box has been made, a package has been put together, which has the different enzymes that you need to conduct a PCR test. So we've moved on from a couple of years back where the components were separate and you had to buy different components, especially for research. Now for this kind of public health, molecular testing with PCR, some of the companies are packaging the PCR, testing in one package. So you can have the enzyme and the other stuff that you need in one package. And that's why the term test kit was applied to the PCR donation from Jack Ma.
Okay, so for each of these boxes that we got, how many samples can you test with each box?
Oh, you can test, usually the manufacturer, it differs by manufacturer. One manufacturer would put a package together which has 20 PCR tests. Another manufacturer would do 50, another would do 100. So it depends on the manufacturer. We've also had PCR test kits supplied by the WHO and by the Africa CDC from a German company. These have all come packaged, to do a certain number of tests per package. Yes.
Right. You see, the reason why I'm asking this is I'm trying to get my head around our capacity at the moment. Whether we are anywhere close to running out, or whether we have enough to test the entire population. So, can you give us an idea?
So that is one of the major logistics issues we are dealing with. When we initially started, we had enough to do about 1,500 tests. And then we, I think if I remember, we got 1,000 from Africa CDC. We got another 3,000 from Africa CDC. We got also 2,000 from WHO. We also got 1,000 from the West Africa Health Organization. So, and then the Jack Ma, kits came in, which were 20,000. Okay. So along the line, we did what we call, we do trials, experiments. Okay. And we worked out the minimum volume, okay, of these enzymes and probe mixes that we could apply. So what we have found is that we're able to reduce the amount of the primer probe mix. This is the chemical that we use for the PCR. So we're able to do more with the same amount than what the manufacturer prescribed would do. And this is a common method in research. So you get a container, it says you can do 20 tests. We're able to modify using a research technique, and then we're able to do 40 or 50 tests. So we're able to double the number of tests that we can do Does
that affect the validity of your results? I mean,
of course, it does not. It does not, because all these assays that we do has a control. Okay, so of course the manufacturer sets his criteria, and then we in-house, make our adjustments, because this is a public health emergency. We want to be able to produce the results as efficiently as possible, but still have valid results. So in line with the criteria to declare positive, we make an adjustment to the working concentrations. And of course, so long as our positive controls and also our in-house controls, both negative and positive, are working, we're able to, come up with a system where we're able to ensure that the results are valid. I would invite you to the lab, because you actually see that the number, you actually see in our database, and this is raw records of the PCRs. You see the number of repeats that we have to do if the test is not valid, in line with each manufacturer's criteria. We follow this strictly. So this is a standard procedure.
I would love to take you up on that invitation, actually. Okay. I'd love to come over later and then have a look.
I'm glad you asked the question about logistics, because this has been a major challenge. Okay. In fact, this is the reason why we've not been able to roll out to other centers that have, PCR capacity, because of the limited amount of PCR kits, and then also the accompanying lab supplies that are needed. In fact, I'm sure that if it wasn't for the fact that we are a research institution, we would not have been able to do more than 10,000 tests, because of the associated consumables that are required. We've had to use resources from other departments, and also from ongoing research projects, which have all been suspended because of the coronavirus outbreak. That's how come we've been able to, maintain this level of testing. Of course, supplies have been ordered. Some have started to come in, but you know that with the closure of many countries, air travel is restricted, and there's pressure on the cargo airlines that are operating. So logistics has been very, very difficult.
This is an important point, a real big hurdle we need to overcome. Now, I noticed you mentioned a number of kits that came through, that 1,500 and another 1,500 and then 3,000, then 2,000. And then you mentioned the 20,000 donation from Jack Ma.
Yes.
I didn't hear you mention the 50,000 that the president said they were going to order. Has that not arrived yet?
50,000 kits. Yes, we've also bought 10,000 QIAGEN kits. We also bought 20,000 PCR kits. So as I said, we have a list of PCR kits and also RNA extraction kits that we have ordered and have come that we are using. And for each kit that we use, of course, we have a standard procedure that we adopt. So we have used the type of PCR kit depending on the kind of analysis that we are doing. Currently, we are using the Jack Ma kits in all the centers in Ghana. That is the standard kit that we are using. So of course, we have the WHO kits and we have the other kits all, on standby, because the largest amount of testing capacity that we have is with the Jack Ma kits. And we wanted to ensure that what we are using in Public Health Reference Lab, what we are using at VSD, what we are using at Noguchi, what we are using at KCCR are all standard.
All the same.
Yes, we're all using the same kits and the same protocol.
So what I'm getting from what you're explaining is that the 50,000 kits that we heard that the president would order, those have not come. So you're working with the other ones.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Do you know where they are being ordered from? Are you part of that process?
It's made by a company called Danjin in China.
Right.
We've already reviewed how it works according to our in-house standards and according to the. We actually started with a standard virus from the European Virus Diagnostic Center. It's in Europe. It's one of the standard centers for Europe. And that was our virus standard that we set up together with the KCCR. And this control has established all the procedures that we do testing. I think I did mention this yesterday that we've also exchanged positive and negative samples between us and KCCR to serve as internal, external quality control systems for Ghana.
Okay, so do you know when we will be receiving the 50,000 from China? Do we have a delivery date?
We don't have a delivery date, but so far we also have orders for other suppliers. So we're confident that as we move, and this is a staggered thing. The other thing that you're probably not aware of about is that we have machines in country called GeneXpert, and these are used for TB. And the company Cepheid has developed a diagnostic kit for coronavirus, and an order has been placed, I think. And this is there are 130 GeneXpert machines all over Ghana. So the rollout that you had, the 50,000, it also includes running systems on this GeneXpert, which is in 100 centers all over Ghana. So we have a national lab plan strategy, and this is being resourced, and we hope that we will be able to have testing centers in each major capital soon.
Right. So what you just described is a network of about 100 other places that can do this testing for the coronavirus.
Exactly.
Okay. They just need to be resourced.
They need to resource. The order with the company has been placed, and there are a couple of issues that need to be worked out. There are some associated equipment that need to be established as well. So this is all, as I told you, is all part of a national strategic, short-term plan for coronavirus that we are adopting.
How soon do you think we'll be able to have these 100 sites online?
Well, other countries have also placed their orders for the resources. So we've been told that sometime in May. We were hoping that first, second week in May, but we will only be able to give a timeline as soon as we get the delivery date from the manufacturer, and then we will then continue with the preparation and the rollout. These sites are already using these machines for TB, so it's just a matter of just putting on the coronavirus software and then running the assays.
Right. Is it possible then for us to test every Ghanaian?
To test every Ghanaian, that would be a difficult. We have 25 million Ghanaians. I think that would be That would mean significant, manpower, resources. Let's put it this way. In every major center where there is a GeneXpert machine, they will be able to offer, testing. And I think the focus would be, this is my own personal opinion, the focus would be, because they're in health facilities, it would be on people who, have respiratory illness, and the clinicians need to rule out, the different pathogens, including coronavirus, TB, etc. So that would be the way to go.
Right.
But testing every single healthy person, I don't think it's a public health strategy, because this is a respiratory virus. You could have the infection today, and a month later you could get exposed again. So you would need to be constantly testing everybody every month or every quarter if you want to use that as a public health tool. It's impossible to do 25 million tests every quarter.
Okay, so there was also the talk of doing these rapid tests. Actually, let me clarify that. There was talk of doing antibodies testing. Tell us about that and why that is important.
Okay, so because these are respiratory viral infections, everybody gets exposed every time. Coronaviruses are present in Ghana. This is a novel coronavirus. So if you're going to test for the coronavirus using antibodies, you need to ensure that the test that you are going to use to detect antibodies to novel coronavirus is not cross-reacting with the other human coronaviruses. There are 4 of them,
right? And
we name them according to different numerals. Okay, so these are already, in Ghana, from our studies on influenza surveillance, we picked up, and our colleagues in KCCRN have done, studies on this also. So these coronaviruses are around. So because of that particular fact, you can't just introduce any rapid diagnostic kit for antibody detection. You have to ensure that these antibody kits are highly sensitive. That means they're able to pick up true positives, and that they are highly specific, that they're able to pick up true negatives. This is what we do for HIV. All the test kits that are used for HIV in Ghana have been evaluated, their sensitivity has been determined, and the algorithm has been adopted accordingly. So the same thing for coronaviruses. We advised government that we needed to evaluate, any rapid diagnostic kits for coronavirus, and the FDA has accordingly produced a guideline that is in place as the framework for the use of rapid diagnostic kits. I mean, for public health, we would love to, do as much testing as possible, but the advice from WHO and then the other international agencies, especially the Africa CDC and WAHO, have been that you could use them for a survey, knowing exactly what you're looking for, but note that you need to interpret the results cautiously, because exposure, presence of the antibody, may not equal to infection, which is what you do when you do a PCR. So you need to be clear about what you want to do. You don't want to test 100 people, all of them will be positive, and they will go away thinking they have coronavirus infection, when the data just shows that they have been exposed to the coronavirus, have probably recovered, and are healthy. So there is some caution about the application of the rapid diagnostic test kits to detect antibody. And there is some discussion about what would be the best combination of the PCR kits, which pick up the virus itself, and these antibody kits, which pick up the antibody showing that you've been exposed to the virus. So these are discussions that we hope that when we are able to evaluate the incoming antibody test kits, advise government on which is most sensitive and specific, then the experts will also then come up and say, okay, we'll do this way in combination with PCR, so that we could have a clear picture of what is happening in Ghana.
Right. So at the moment, you've talked about the logistical constraint. Now, assuming that our order will come in May or whenever it is that we're expecting the 50,000 to come in, are we okay till then? Do we have enough to go on with the rapid testing, the enhanced contact tracing and testing till then?
Yes, my feeling is that the enhanced contact tracing that was done in Accra and Kumasi was to get an idea in our 2 key major cities. And so what I understand from the Ghana Health Service is that they're going to do a targeted approach, where the surveillance will be linked to the lab capacity, so that the surveillance ensures that it achieves its true aim of identifying positives, isolating them, and reducing the transfer or spread in the community. So I understand that it's going to be targeted going forward. And as I told you, we have currently orders, which we are hoping that these would arrive ASAP, and then we could resource, testing centers, outside Accra and Kumasi, where we know that there is existing PCR, capacity. You've heard talk about the Veterinary Service Directorate. They have labs with PCR capacity in Accra, in Sekondi Takoradi, and in Pong Tamale. So there is the plan to include them in the testing. We've done an initial assessment, and we're hoping that we will get them online very soon. There are also other laboratories in the War Memorial Hospital in Avrongo. There's also the Tamale Teaching Hospital. There's a public health lab that has also PCR capacity that our colleagues in KCCR have assessed, and we are hoping that ASAP we could also bring them online.
Right. Now, you're a virologist, am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so perhaps you can help me with this. We're moving from enhanced, testing, if you like, to targeted testing. But our numbers are up, which means that the number of people who are positive is higher than it was when we were doing enhanced testing, or when we started enhanced testing. Are we not rather now in a position where there might be exponential, infection? Why are we going to be testing fewer people?
I didn't say we'll be testing fewer people. I was saying that the testing would be targeted. So,
right.
So that would be a more efficient use of the resource. Of course, surveillance means that person, time, place, look at wherever there is an issue, and also test. And that's the way actually the testing has been going on. Remember, we started with the with incoming travelers, okay? And then with the case definition was anybody who had traveled recently. So the testing has always been targeted. It has not been mass testing. It has always been targeted. And that strategy, I understand, is what we are pursuing.
I suppose I asked you that because my initial question was, do we have enough to last us until May? And you said, yes, because we should be doing targeted testing. So you understand why they gave me the impression that perhaps, we're going to be doing testing fewer people, which is why we will last until May.
We actually, as I said, with this, it's how do I say? It's a dynamic process. Okay, the order from Jack Ma could come in any time, so that would still be in April. We have other orders, as I've told you, which are dependent on the ability to go through the air cargo bottlenecks. So as we scale up, that's why we are not scaling. That's why you don't hear of testing ongoing in Avrongo now. We have to ensure that the associated reagents, lab supplies are in place for them to have sustained testing. Yes.
So who are we targeting now?
That question will have to go to the Ghana Health Service. The Ghana Health Service, our colleagues in surveillance, they look at the risk from the hotspots, the data they've gathered, and they combine this with reports from the regional directors for health, and then they come up with what would be the appropriate strategy, which I understand is targeted and not mass testing. That's why I mentioned that specifically.
Okay. Just before you go, one little clarification, and it's just a numbers thing. I've been looking at the breakdown on the Ghana Health Service website of the number of tests that have been done. And it says that for the mandatory quarantine, 2,022 tests have been done.
Yes.
My understanding was that there were only just a little above 1,000 people quarantined. So how do we explain the 2022 tests that is recorded here by the Ghana Health Service?
There were people associated with the mandatory quarantine. So they probably put all that together. And they also remember that when people were positive, they either do home care or they are put into quarantine. So you could have probably some people from the recent community, enhanced surveillance, who have also been quarantined. So that could probably account for it. But I do not know the details because we do the testing and then we provide the results for them. So it could have been a quarantine case, but it could have been labeled as contact tracing. It could have been a suspected case in a hospital, but it could still have come from, a mandatory quarantine. Okay. So they know
they've broken it down. But I'm guessing what you're saying is that that would not be from you. That's not for you to answer. Okay. Yes. All right. Professor William Ampofo, I've got to say a big thank you for the time you've spent with us and all the explanations. We really appreciate it. And I'd love to come over later today, so I'll give you a call and see.
Look, we had your colleagues from City FM come. I think they did a nice documentary. We'll invite you guys to spend time with us so that you look into the systems, you see exactly the work we do, and my colleagues feel very appreciated because they've done a lot of work. 150 people working day night, for over 2-3 weeks. It's been a tough job. Yeah.
I look forward to that. Thanks once again.
Thank you. All right, a pleasure.
Well, so you see me, look like a ninja. But in the meantime, we all have to make sure that we keep all these masks on and regularly. It's always important for all of us to get to know what needs to be done, right? So if you're putting on the mask, you need to put them on if you have an interaction. And also regularly wash your hands under running water with soap, of course. And then use a sanitizer if you don't have an opportunity to do so. Tomorrow is the start of a national 3-day prayer and fasting, and it's by the Christian Council of Ghana. I have the chair of the Christian Council of Ghana here, and he also happens to be the presiding bishop of the Methodist Church. The Most Reverend Dr. Paul Kwabena Boafo is here. How are you, sir?
I'm fine.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, Charlie, we're managing. It's not easy. Putting on masks, and sometimes you can't breathe well, but you just have to get used to it.
That's true.
But I know that the church has had a lot of roles to play in this. Our Muslim brothers and sisters just are starting the Ramadan today. I know that religion has become very integral in trying to complement the efforts of state.
Sure.
So far, how has it been for you as a minister for the Methodist Church and also you, the Christian groupings?
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity. For the Christian body in Ghana, it has been from the days of the colonial times where the church and the state has been in partnership. And you can see this in all spheres of life when it comes to education, when it comes to health, when it comes to social interventions and all that. The church has been there. The church has been involved in the politics of Ghana. The church has been there when we are in crisis, when we are in good times. The church is always available. And especially in this time of the COVID-19, the church embraced the partnership and has deepened the partnership between government and the church, in the sense that one, we are following the protocols, the social distancing, the hand washing, sanitizing, and all that. We are following it to the letter. Apart from that, we have also been involved in donations to government and to our institutions. Noguchi, the church was there to make presentation as to what they needed to facilitate their work. The hospitals, the Minister of Health is always full of praise for the churches in Ghana because of the support we have given in terms of equipments, PPEs, and all that. The Presbyterians are there, the Catholics, and some of these things are not even quantified, in the sense that our people are living in a state of fear, and it is the church that has been the source of hope for the people, bringing back hope, bringing back the faith in God. And so the church is seen in a holistic manner, helping in all aspects.
If you take a look at all these complementary roles that you play, how then do you fuse in the related issues of education? Because we just had the lockdown, we just had the lockdown lifted. Indeed, we're just about 4 days into the lifting of the lockdown. But imperative is the need to make sure that all of us adhere to protocols.
That's it.
And if you look in town, it looks like many of us in these endemic areas or cities are not doing that. How do you play that complementary role?
Our role, it's in the education of our congregants, the congregations, because now we don't meet in the church. The churches are also closed, but we meet our people through social media. We are streaming live to them, and it is out of this that we continue with the education, and we tell them, and it has been very, very consistent, that even though we are out of the partial lockdown, it does not negate the following of the protocols that are there. And all these protocols are for prevention. And as a church, we are particularly involved and concerned with prevention rather than the curative, because if you prevent it, then you will not waste money in curing or coming to the hospital to spend a lot of money. So particularly with the preventions, the church has always done the education. One thing I have observed, which I think is absent, is the fact that the church has not made the scientific professionals or the health or medical professionals to be at the forefront within what the church is doing in the education process. Do you think it's something that you as Christian group, is not only the Christian Council of Ghana, is thinking about or need to undertake? In fact, you see, even when you talk about these scientists, talk about these secular institutions, they are all part of the church. You see, they are all part of the church in the sense that, one, they might be Christians, or they might be men and women of God, or they are Muslims, or they are all within us. And so coming out there into the public domain does not negate that we are not playing our part, because they come to us, we talk to them, and then we interact. And even sometimes they give us what we have to teach our congregations. So it's a very good synergy between us and them, because they are part of us. Yes. One group of people who are really psychologically, I would say, vulnerable. The leading health professionals, the doctors, the nurses, and even the allied professionals who work there, and we call them the frontliners. How do you reach them? When the lockdown issue came up, I think one of the denominations within the Christian Council said, just leave it with us. We will take up their lunch. That's a practical way. Those who are in the front line will take up their lunch during the period, and they have continued since. We reach out to them by that means. Then we are also reaching out to them with our prayer support. And every moment, every time that the church meets, we have never forgotten. We have never forgotten the frontliners, the security men, the doctors, then those in immigration and all that, because we believe that if these people are protected, then we can have a very strong workforce that can deal with this pandemic.
No, that's very credible. Right. The other aspect I know is that you as missionaries or missions, you play critical role in education. Now we know that all the schools are shut down. So have you reached out to the schools so that all the programming that they have, you're also embedded in what they're doing?
Because they are now home, we reach them through the live streaming that we do, at least with keeping up their faith and their religion. And then we also encourage them to follow all the instructions that are given by government to continue with their education. So parents are advised to help their children go through these things so that they don't lose out.
Yeah. And I see it's in line with trying to provide this sort of support that you're undertaking the National Prayer
and Fasting Program. Yes.
And you're doing it for 3 days.
Sure.
Just because we're vulnerable.
Exactly. That's it.
We need prayer and fasting.
We need it every day. We need it every day. But it has become very, very necessary for all Christians in Ghana to come together. And when I talk of all Christians in Ghana, I'm talking about all the Christian bodies, which is made up of one, the Christian Council of Ghana, the Ghana Pentecostal Council and Charismatic Churches. Then we have the Ghana National Association of Charismatic Churches. Then we have our brothers, the Catholics, the Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference. And then we have some who are not part of any of these groupings. They are also part. Then we have some church organizations like the SU, the Full Gospel Men's Fellowship, we have the GLOW, we have GACO, we have all these people. They are all part of this exercise that we are putting forward for the national 3 days fasting and prayer.
And when you congregate, it's all virtual?
It's all virtual.
Okay.
It's all virtual.
So do we have some schedule, maybe morning prayer timelines and all that?
Yes. It's virtual, and so wherever you find yourself as a Christian, we are going to provide prayer bulletins, and we are saying that the day is broken into 3 segments. The first session is from 6 to 12, where we'll have a prayer session. Then we have 12 to 3, another prayer session, then 3 to 6. The day is from 6 to 6, the prayer. And the first section is where we want to praise God, we want to thank God, we want to worship God, we want to adore Him, we want to lift Him high, we want to show His sovereignty and His power, and to acknowledge Him that He is sovereign, He is powerful, He is Lord, He is everything. All right. And then the second aspect is where we come to confess our sins, and because that is very, very important. That is very, very crucial. So we are confessing the sins of individuals, the sins of the church, the sins of the nations, the sins of governments, the sins of corporations, everywhere, because it is a requirement that before we can approach the throne of grace and to tap into the grace of God, we must make sure that we are clean. Then when all these things are over, the third segment is where we come with a prayer of intercession, and then we intercede, and then we petition the Lord that, oh God, heal our nation, heal our land, heal our world.
Well, are there portals that we can reach when we're doing all these congregations, say midday or early morning or close of fasting and prayer day?
Yes, we are putting up these portals. We are having a press briefing this morning. Just after here, I'm running to the place to make sure that they are putting it up. But we have other means whereby the denominations are reaching their members, and we want them to use them still. There are other individuals who are using national media where they are also preaching and encouraging the people wherever they are to make sure that they are part and parcel of this exercise, which is for the nation.
Right. There are 2 more questions. I'll put it all into one.
Right.
I noticed that we've not had interfaith actions, even though, of course, all the faiths are doing their thing. So are there plans for interfaith actions? And then if you look at the churches, they are vulnerable. Maybe they don't have enough work, or they live by the day, etc. What has been done for them?
Okay. Right. Let me start from the second one. Yeah, where we talk about the vulnerable. The church is made up of the vulnerable, the marginalized, let me put it that way. Because no matter how you see yourself as affluent, you are vulnerable. There is no way that you can say that you are too affluent not to need anything, right? So the church's mission is for the spirituality as well as the physical wellness of the individual. So in this COVID-19, we were exposed to a lot of these handicaps. And that is where the church came in. The church came in with material support, food support, and making sure that people who did not have enough to eat were supplied with food, even before the government came in, and then asked the faith-based organizations to help in the distribution. So
you were doing that within your membership?
Exactly. Oh, okay. Yes. There are some societies, they made sure they went around either with cooked food or the raw food,
packages.
Yes, okay. Packages. And they asked some asked their members to come and pick it, observing the social distancing. And then when we talk of the interfaith, this is where you see all of us coming together. So you see that the Methodists, the Presbyterians, the Assemblies of God, the Catholics, the Charismatics, Action, and all that. And so this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you see all of us coming together to combat this novel coronavirus.
Yeah, and it's a disease that has held no bounds at all. Every body within the demographics of any population is vulnerable. So you've seen even heads of state who have been taken by this.
No respect of
no respect of persons. And it's something that Mamavi and I always tend to think about. That look, this has been very much revealing about the structure of our society and how vulnerable we are as a people. It's good that you put that into perspective. But we also will join you right here on the AM show, and the next 3 days we will be with you. Okay?
Thank you.
And we've been having this interaction with the Most Reverend Dr. Paul Kwabena Boafo. He is chair, the Christian Council of Ghana, but also the presiding bishop, the Methodist Church of Ghana. And I tell you, if you hear his voice, personally, he reminds me of Reverend Dr. Opuni Frimpong. And so that's Reverend Dr. Opuni Frimpong there in the mask. But I'll say to you, Reverend Dr. Opuni Frimpong, good morning to you as well, and all the good work you're doing.